Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Musto from Siemens Digital Industries, and I'm once again joined today with Tucker Marianne from Northeastern University and Liz Graham from Ada IQ. This is part 2 of our latest Pioneers podcast episode focused on Ada IQ. Let's dive in.
So you talked about having better customer insights, which is one silo of data, but there's also things like point of sale information, returns information, bill of materials cost. Do you see those data silos being broken down and being useful for the design process up front?
Absolutely. And where I see the landscape right now is you've got a lot of point solutions. You've got a return solution that a e-com company is using that's capturing all that information. And then you've got some PLM software or other product management software that's kind of doing the workflow around the product creation. You've got the marketing engine and the sales engine. And if you're sitting in almost any company right now, those data sets are usually governed by different teams, often in different repositories, and really hard to connect. And what happens, and this is true of any process where there are handoffs between departments, is information loss. It's just reality of how we all work when you're doing cross-department transactions. And where I see Ada IQ being particularly useful is, again, this ability to pull that fragmented data into informing that early product process and say, here's the knowledge we have the whole way through the value chain around how this type of product has been successful or not at this company or at competitor companies. And then as you're doing that product brief or as you're evaluating which concepts you're going to move forward on, you've got a much richer, more diverse, more relevant data set on which to build those decisions rather than getting 3 steps down the chain and somebody in the materials team is like, hey, Liz, we can't build that product at that price point because that material just is no longer available or went up 3x last year. And so there's a real opportunity to not only connect that data, but connect it in a way that suggests a next action that the team should take. It's sort of, how do you make that data actionable to teams? Everybody's washing data. What decisions does that data help you make? Where I think Ada can be really helpful.
So pulling on the thread of keeping human or people in the loop, what if a designer or a product manager will say, yes, this is wonderful, but I'm fearful that I'm going to lose my job. So how do you respond to that with this being an augmentative kind of co-pilot kind of system? How do you think that's going to transfer into workflows? And what does that mean for the organization?
So one thing I do think is pretty common and won't change is that people are stuck in doing a lot of repetitive tasks or low value add tasks or administrivia or just repetitive things that don't bring a lot of value to the work that they do. And if you're a designer of a physical product, you have to operate within some constraints. And so where I think Ada IQ can intersect with design teams most usefully is to say, let me help you design within this constrained world. I want you to get your design on people's feet or to get your design on the shelf in a store. And my technology is here to help make that happen and enable your creativity and your design to be as easy to create as possible with the greatest chance of success. I think that there's a real room for craft in product creation and innovation. And no matter how good the technology is and the degree of novelty, all of us are humans and we make emotional decisions about buying. And I think that it is important to figure out how to manage the change because this is in many ways a process reinvention, and to get that buy-in from the teams who will be participating in it and help them see how this is, to your point, like augmenting the work that they do and hopefully stripping away a lot of the stuff that they don't like to do and leaving them to do the things that they're really talented and capable of.
So it's really a product designer's solution, right? The thought here is not that some marketing guy is going to come up with a conceptual idea and Ada IQ will just automatically generate them. This is something that the product designer can help refine and make better decisions about the artistic aspects of what he's doing with the product that he's designing.
Yeah. And you can think about it as like maybe they're using Illustrator or other design platform to do their design work. Ada IQ can almost be a sparring partner where they're throwing a couple designs out there. They're trying to see sort of what works, what doesn't, but you can do it in seconds rather than pulling together a focus group or even just your office Slack channel to get reactions to things. So I think that's where some of the power also is in boosting that creative process and informing it too.
I have a question. So if thinking about designing a product, whatever it might be, a running shoe or a car, at some point you're going from an illustration package like a Midjourney or a Viscom or an Illustrator, something along those lines, or even a pen and paper. Still, many people still do that. But at some point, you've got to translate it into computer-aided design, right? You have to turn it into a three-dimensional model that's going to be applicable for design, detailed design and simulation, and then the downstream to make it, right? What does Ada do to smooth out that workflow?
Again, I think this gets back to our conversation earlier about the disconnected data. In kind of current world, there's a bit of a data layer that gets added as you move through the process, whereas if you can pull this into the product conception, then that data can seamlessly travel into the CAD process, and you can look at CAD designs. And again, if you have to make an adjustment, rather than doing a whole rework loop, you can do a quick hit consumer test to say, all right, we had to make these adjustments. Is that meaningfully changing the potential marketability of this, and how will we know that? And so you get this informed product that can travel through the system, and it's a continuous learning. So as things make their way onto the shelf, you get that POS data that reinforces and strengthens the ability to do even better for the next deployment.
So your plan is to integrate into Siemens or into Creo or into SolidWorks, those sorts of, or Onshape?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of opportunity. Paul, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, in terms of how companies like yours are looking at enhancing capabilities and partnerships or other integrations with different startups or mid-size companies doing complementary technology.
Absolutely. This is, again, fairly new for all of us around AI and stuff like that. And how do we leverage AI to make our products better, more usable, produce better results, and so forth. And so there's a couple areas that we've really had a heavy focus on. I mentioned one earlier about the generative part of it, which I think ties into what you're talking about from a product design perspective, where we can help engineers, again, not do it automatically from a marketing spec, but from a design engineer's concept of what a product should be, help them design products more intelligently that meet your structural integrity or your sustainability goals or whatever goals that you have for that particular product outline. So that's a piece of it. These tools are very complex to use and to produce the kinds of designs that you're looking for. So just even having some more intuitive, more intelligent user interface applications. So we have prompt-based functions within the tools now. Let's take simulation as an example. I mean, simulation is something that's been typically reserved for an expert or specialist, right? So now we can bring simulation to the engineer because we can understand what the structure that they're working on, and kind of they can describe in text and verbal ways how they want that product to perform. And the simulation engines can respond and react to that and be able to run simulations that are relevant to what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to achieve. So there's a tremendous amount of power and capability that we're trying to extract from AI moving forward. I think we're just at the beginning of that. And you talked about the innovative even in a large company. It's just been amazing for me over the last year to see how far we've come in that area just in the last year. So it's been good to see that even in a large company, we can leverage modern technology and develop new innovative solutions for customers. So.
Yeah, you hit on one point that I think is really interesting and will be fascinating to see how things unfold, which is some of this democratization of technology and being able to take things that were historically very complex or demanded real discipline and expertise to be able to use. Now with AI or other capabilities, there's often the ability to put that more in a broader array of the team's hands or less specialized hands, and I think that this is something that will be. I mean, I'm sure there will be plenty of sort of failures along the road here, but I think it also creates a very interesting opportunity for innovation where you've got low code and no code software capabilities. You don't need to have a team of engineers necessarily alongside you if you have an idea on something that you want to build. 3D printers allowing you to prototype things much more rapidly and cost effectively than 10, 15 years ago. So I'm personally excited as one of the areas for innovation and seeing what that brings.
I think it's a great opportunity for individuals, for companies and teams to upskill themselves in new ways, right? I mean, I've been around the industry for a long time. In the last year, it's been far more efficient. It's made me a better leader, a better manager of technology, to be able to use some of these tools and solutions to help me make better decisions or to work with me. So I think across the board, whether you're a design engineer, whatever kind of engineer or innovator you might be, you can use this technology to just improve what you do today and fundamentally upscale. Or look at even in manufacturing, like you have people who have been in manufacturing positions for many, many years, and the technology there has changed dramatically, and it's been a really difficult time for them to kind of meet the demands of what this new technology. I think with AI and some of the new tools, new solutions that are coming out, that we're going to help be able to bridge that gap and upskill the workforce that's out there. Shifting a little bit more, because our podcast focuses on, hopefully our audience are young entrepreneurs who are interested in developing their companies. So you've founded a number of different companies. Can you kind of offer some advice to some of the entrepreneurs out there as some of the trials and tribulations and hurdles and things that you face as a startup founder?
One of the core things is you really have to love your product, because there are going to be very, very, very hard days. And there are going to be incredibly uplifting days. But fundamentally, you have to have a deep passion for what you are trying to build and bring to the market. I would say that the counterbalance to that is you need people around you who will give you a very candid assessment of what you need to hear, because you are so blinders, heads down, focused. Somebody needs to call it an ugly baby sometimes so that you can think about, okay, well, maybe this isn't the most beautiful creation I've made, and I should, listen to Tucker's advice, listen to Paul's advice, and take this in a bit of another direction. But I think being able to surround yourself with a good group of advisors, mentors, one of the things that I think the Boston ecosystem in particular is very strong with is people being very generous with their time. I think if you have a well-crafted specific ask, you will be able to find people around you to help you as an entrepreneur. You don't have to do it all yourself. In fact, often it's better that you don't do it all yourself.
Pulling on that thread a little bit, how do you deal with the kind of the roller coaster ups and downs? You might have a day that starts off great and then it's a disaster by the end of the day. How do you get through that?
Many years ago, I think this article came out in 2008. There was a Harvard Business Review article called Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time. It focused on the concept that energy is a renewable resource and time is finite. And then there were a series of studies at different businesses with the principles in this article. And I've shared that article with almost everyone I know, because I think fundamentally it reminds you that getting no sleep, fueling yourself with caffeine, and then having 2 glasses of wine after work and under investing in the relationships is not sustainable and not healthy. And really the best thing you can do is make sure that you're fueling yourself in a healthy way, that you are making time and space for whatever renewal practices, whether it's meditation or yoga or going hiking in the woods or, gaming or whatever sort of gets you out of your head for a bit, and that you cultivate the relationships, in your life. Sometimes that takes the form of journaling. So there have been days where, my headline in my journal is like, what am I doing here? Because I agree with you, Tucker. Like you have to be able to kind of stomach that roller coaster, which is why I get back to you have to fundamentally love what you're doing and really have a great team around you and have good complementary capabilities of the team that you're working with, because you have to be able to lean on each other. One time you might be having a rough day, but someone else on the team just cracked a problem. And so you feed off of that excitement. And particularly when you're a small team, you know what the temperature in the room is, even if you're not all physically in the room together.
Do you force yourself to shut down every once in a while and say, I got to walk away and go out to dinner or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, there's a point of diminishing returns, and you're better off getting some perspective, getting a breath, going for a walk, going to grab coffee with a friend, than forcing yourself to keep pushing on a problem. There's a lot of research that shows that your subconscious mind is a much better problem solver when you sort of let it roam free and come back and take another whack at it.
How are you going to implement that kind of philosophy into the culture of Ada? Is there something that you might be thinking of instilling, or when people take off, they're really off? How do you think that's going to translate?
There are a couple of things that I've done before. One is I tend to be very clear about, like, I'm off on these days, or I'm doing family things. Like, I want people to have a life outside of Ada. I want to encourage people, if they've got a soccer game for their daughter, to go to their daughter's soccer game and make sure that they are there for the big moments in life. The work will always be there. So I think kind of celebrating the human part of the team that we have is really important. I have a blog called What's Liz Been Up To? It was initially started when I had very large teams, because I was like, they don't have any idea what I do every day. I'm just like this name on the email list. That's also a way that I try and help folks, and we've been doing it at Ada with our small team, just say, here's how I'm spending my time. These are the priorities that I have. These are the wins. These are the challenges. And I think showing up in an authentic way with the team is really important. I got early feedback that I was aloof and unapproachable early in my career, and it really hurt. I never viewed myself that way, but I think people were a little bit put off by whether it was my academic pedigree or the fact that I was doing a lot of work with politicians and in my government affairs role. So that was a great wake-up call for me, and it encouraged me to just show more of my human, goofy, sort of stupid me. I mean, Tucker's been on the receiving end of a whole bunch of my memes and jokes, and good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah, great gifts.
We've chatted a few times. I can't even imagine somebody calling you aloof or unapproachable. I just want to pull on one other thread before we probably have to come into the close of this. The intersection, I talked about the intersection of academic, industry, innovation, startups, and that's kind of played a big role in the development of Ada. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot think of a better place than Boston to capitalize on the tremendous amount of intellectual capital that we have here. And you think of the tremendous talent pools that you have in these academic institutions. You have the opportunity for thought leadership and groundbreaking research that's coming out of these universities. We get the benefit of co-ops from Northeastern, and strongly encourage anyone listening to this podcast to think about tapping into that program as well. And the other nice thing about the academic arena is there's more objectivity there, because obviously I come with my own agenda for Ada. If Siemens or any other large corporation has initiatives and priorities that they're looking to drive, and I think academia can provide a nice balance to that. I think large companies have a tremendous opportunity to foster and encourage the development of new technology. I think we all know it's very risky to do startups, and I think whether it's providing mentoring and access to customers or discounted software. I mean, there are lots of things that large companies can do to foster and enable that ecosystem globally, really. And I think from a startup perspective, you can learn a tremendous amount from large companies. I think this is a topic of the academic interest in research is not always commercial, and startups sometimes don't have the commercial muscle really to actualize their vision. And that's where I think also large companies that have that long muscle memory in commercializing products and understanding customer needs and being able to bring new offerings to them can really benefit startups that maybe don't have that wide aperture view that a large company that's been commercializing technology for decades has. And I see that as tremendously valuable.
Yeah, from a large industry perspective, I mean, I think certainly in my experience, it's been really over the last 5 to 10 years where I think large industry has really kind of taken a greater interest in what's going on in the startup world, in the world of innovation in general, and with academic institutions as well. As what we've seen is that innovation doesn't just kind of go away, right? Innovation, it grows in different ways. Even if the companies themselves don't survive, that innovation survives, and that innovation will get either acquired or moved into a different company or started and move in a different direction. And that's where larger companies I can help foster and develop and promote and partner with those companies and that innovation to be there when it actually takes off. I use the example, a number of years back, there's still a lot going on in the aerospace sector. And I think we were talking a little bit earlier. I mean, there's been many, many companies that we've worked with that we've been able to see that technology evolve, and some of the technology got acquired by other companies. Other companies are just doing well on their own. So there's a lot of value there from a large corporate perspective to be working with startup companies and the academic innovation ecosystem that's in there as well.
Totally agree.
To kind of close this out, if you wanted to give these young entrepreneurs of startup companies some golden advice, is there any kind of couple key elements you'd like to put out there?
So I would say, don't feel like you need to have all the answers. One of the things, and especially if you are driven and high achieving and someone who's created a lot of value in your individual capacity, it can be hard to step back and feel like you don't have to own everything. You don't have to be on top of everything. But I think that the best advice is to really think about what are the questions you need to ask and who can you get advice or expertise from, because you will implode out of trying to do this all yourself, manage it all yourself, keep your eyes on everything in the business. And there are things that you as the CEO founder are uniquely able to do. And that's what you need to spend your time on. And the things that aren't core to the sole value that you can provide, you really need to think about who else in your network, in your team can benefit. I mean, sometimes it's a development and learning opportunity for other people on your team to take on some of those responsibilities, but resist the urge to hang on tightly to everything and use that to empower your team, use that to keep yourself from burning out too.
Kind of a related question to that. You've in your career, you've seen a number of different eras of technology. So the first, the internet, followed by broadband, followed by social media and Web 2.0, and then smartphones and applications, double-sided platforms, and now AI. For the younger audience, what seems different about our current moment? What seems the same? And what advice would you give to those that it's their first tech wave?
One of the things that has not changed is sort of the unsexy parts of this, which is data is tremendously important, and it's only becoming more important because of the scale that AI is using data. So I think it's critically important to understand and be an intelligent consumer, whether it's a product that you're using or a product you're building. What is the data? Is there bias in that data, or how might there be bias in the data, or how will you test that data to make sure that you have a good, solid foundation on which to build technology? I think what I long ago wished I had the degree of visibility that technology today is able to provide. I mean, it was like the idea of getting real-time data on anything when I was first starting out. It was like a pipe dream. No way. It would take you like a week to get a report out of your data team if you had friends on the inside, So I think that rapid iteration cycle is important, but I really do think the critical thing is to have a healthy questioning attitude to what that foundation is on which the technology is built, to make sure you really understand what are the inputs and how are they being used.
Okay, one last question. What excites you about Ada IQ's future?
So my North Star is I want to see products that have been built with Ada on the shelves. This to me will be like a tremendous leap forward. That will mean that there are companies that are really embracing our technology. There are new products out there that we will see high consumer adoption for because they are being built with that at the genesis. So that to me is like the first dollar bill in your business is going to be that photo of that first Ada enabled product on the shelf.
Yeah, that's great. That would be fantastic. Liz, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. And we're all excited to see how Ada IQ develops and the future for you and your team and the company. If people want to reach out and understand a little bit more about Ada IQ, where would you recommend they go?
AdaIQ.com will get you to us. Liz at AdaIQ.com will get you to me.
Awesome. And Tucker, thank you.
Oh, it was a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to many more. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And thank you, Liz. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
A heck of a co-host. It was good. It was definitely good. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited about our future collaboration around this stuff. I want to thank everybody that's listening to the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully you found this information informative. If you want to reach out to myself, I'm paul.musto@siemens.com. You can go to our website at www.siemens.com/startups software solutions, startups.software.solutions. We do have discounted solutions and software for companies that are interested in engineering software platforms. Thank you for listening. Actually, Tucker, would you like to add anything about where people might be?
Sure. You can contact me on LinkedIn or go to tuckermarion.com and you'll be taken to how you can contact me.
And please feel free to leave any positive comments below, and you can leave off the negative ones. No, I'm just kidding. Anything people would like to leave, we'd love to hear the feedback.